Hello and welcome to the tutorial for letters in Word. I'm going to start out by showing you a letter that's already been created and talking to you about the different parts of the letter. So here we have our sample letter. First of all, we have the letterhead. You created one like this in your last lesson, and for your assignments for this unit, you will be using that letterhead that you created last time. For this, we have a public library, we have the letterhead. The next thing that we have is our current date, and if you remember, we formatted our template so that the date would automatically change. Obviously, this one is not formatted that way. After your date, you're going to have 4 hard returns or 4 enters. And if you're not quite sure how many times you hit enter, you can come up to the show formatting marks on your home ribbon, and you'll see a paragraph mark each time enter was hit. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, we have what's called our inside address. This is the person to whom our letter has been written. You need to always use the formal Mr., Mrs., Ms. If you're not sure if the woman is married or not, use the Ms., MS. Street address, city, state, zip code. If this person has a company name, that would go right after their name. Okay, then we have 2 enters. You can count them, 1, 2. And then you're always going to do the formal dear, then their title, Mr., Mrs., Ms., last name. Notice on this letter we have a colon after the last name. The colon is the only punctuation that you will ever use in the greeting of the letter. You never want to use a comma. So it's always dear, title, last name, and if there's any punctuation, there's a colon. Then we have a double space, and then these 4 paragraphs are what we consider the body of our letter. They're single spaced with a double space in between each paragraph. Most letters are comprised of 2, 3, or 4 paragraphs. After the body of our letter, we have what's called our complimentary close. This is the word sincerely, thank you, yours truly. If there's ever punctuation on these, it's always a comma. Then we have 4 hard returns. And this is the space where the person actually signs their name. Then these other 2 items at the bottom of our letter are optional. The first one of these is the Typist Initials. So in this scenario, I was the office person or secretary who typed this letter for Marsha Lawrence, and so my initials appear here. If Marsha Lawrence would have typed this letter herself, we wouldn't have any Typist Initials. After that, we have the word enclosure. And if you read up to our letter here, in the first paragraph, enclosed is a registration packet. So anytime anything is being sent with a letter, you need to use the enclosure notation just to alert the person that, yes, there is something else in the envelope with the letter. Now, I mentioned a little bit about punctuation. There are 2 different types of punctuation styles when you're writing letters. This letter is written in mixed punctuation. That means that there's a colon after the greeting and there's a comma after the complimentary close. If this letter were written in open punctuation, there would be no colon here and there'd be no comma here. I'm going to turn off these formatting marks just so you can see better. All other punctuation would be the same, just like you've learned in English class. Periods after sentences and other punctuation that just follows the rules. But in an open punctuation letter, there's nothing after the greeting and there's nothing after the complimentary close. So our two types of punctuation: mixed, which is this, and open, where there's neither punctuation in those places. Notice that everything in our letter is left aligned. This is what's known as block style. Everything's at the left margin. None of the paragraphs are tabbed. Nothing is moved. Everything's left aligned. So this is a block style letter. A modified block style letter is everything left aligned except the date, the complimentary close, the signature, and the title. So let's look at how we would format that. First of all, I come right before my date. Make sure I have a left tab here. Ruler bar is showing, and I would set a left tab at 4 inches. And then I would tab the date over. And my complimentary close. And my name and title. And of course my person that signs will be signing over here in between these elements. So this letter is modified block style. Everything left justified except the date and the complimentary close. So as you do your assignments, pay attention to whether the instructions are asking for block style, modified block style, mixed punctuation, or open punctuation. Now we'll go on and I will show you how to create a letter from scratch using your letterhead that you created in the last lesson. Okay, now we're going to create our own letter using the letterhead we typed in the last lesson. So remember that you're going to want to find your letterhead file and double click it. If we've put in our date correctly, it should read our current date, and if we just click anywhere on our letter, it should automatically have 4 hard returns. If you're not sure, turn on your show formatting and make sure. Okay, the first thing I'm going to be typing is my inside address, or the person and their address to who I'm sending this letter. So I'm just going to kind of make up so here I have title, first name, last, company name, street address, city, state, and zip. Then after my inside address, 2 enters. And then I'm going to start out, Dear Mr. Briggs. I'm typing this one in block style mixed punctuation, so everything's going to be left aligned, and I have a colon after my opening. Then 2 enters after your opening or your salutation, and let's just make up a letter. So we're going to pretend that we met this person and we're trying to find employment with them. So we're enclosing our resume. Ooh. We're wanting to get a job as a swimming teacher. Okay, and the letter would go on. So you'd have several paragraphs. Then after your last paragraph, make sure you double space. And then we have our complimentary close, which is sincerely or yours truly. Because we're using mixed punctuation, we'll have a comma after this. 4 enters. And I don't have a title. I'm not going to put that on here. I typed this myself, so I'm not going to have any typist initials, but I am enclosing a resume, so I need to make sure I have the encloser notation at the end. Now I'm going to turn off my show formatting and zoom out a little bit. Your spacing is pretty fixed throughout your letter, but you can be flexible with this spacing up here. So I don't have a lot of content in this letter, and it looks a little bit top heavy as I zoom out. Of course, if I developed these paragraphs, it would probably be more balanced, but the way it is, I'm just going to come up here above my date and hit enter a few times just to move this down so that it looks more balanced on the page. And then remember that because I opened this as a template, there's no name right now. It's document 2. So when I go to save, I'm going to be giving this a new name. On these letter assignments, I don't want a header because I don't want things messing up your letterhead up here. So you can just name these what you want, but make sure that you've opened your template correctly and you're not overriding it. And then also make sure that you pay attention to the instructions for the style of your letter and the punctuation. And that concludes our video on letter writing. Good luck!